we can get those?
They're all on,
YouTube.
yeah, YouTube. Just type my name in YouTube and
Okay.
you'll see a picture that looked like me 15 years ago. It'll be on there. Okay, we are in chapter 13.
Yep.
Chapter 13. Just want to, it's been a couple weeks since we had revival last week. Since we had revival last week, a couple weeks since we've been in the text, so I want to just give you a quick reminder. And I think this will also, I hope, help advance your understanding and following all of these images. As you see, I did give you a handout, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But in chapter 12, we learned that there was Satan is described in this part of the vision as a dragon, and there was a woman who represented God's people who was giving birth to a male child. The male child was Jesus, and of course Jesus came from God's people under the Old Covenant, and Jesus was born. He was going to serve as king for God's eternal kingdom on earth, and God's eternal kingdom as it comes to the earth, I should say. And the dragon, Satan, was trying to stop all of this, and so he failed in that, and so we all know, of course, Jesus died, but even through that, God's will is accomplished, right? So Jesus pays a substitutionary sacrifice for our sins, taking our sins, the consequences of our sins upon himself, yet overcoming that death, so the grave couldn't keep its hold on him, death couldn't keep its hold on Christ, and he's an overcomer. And so now Satan no longer has the ultimate power of death, where before everyone was separated because of sin from God, but now the price has been paid so he can be reconciled unto God. And so Satan is kicked out of heaven. For a while he has access to heaven, right? So we see even after the fall, even after Satan sinned, he still had access to go back and forth and could talk to God. And after Jesus pays the price, he's bound by the truth of the gospel. He's kicked out of heaven. Jesus kind of served as a prophet in that regard. He said, I saw Satan fall from heaven like lightning to the earth. And then so that's what chapter 12 is about. The dragon is cast down to the earth, and so woe to the earth and the sea, because the dragon has come down to you. And so Satan's kingdom, he's the ruler of the, Christ is the ruler of God's spiritual kingdom, right? His eternal spiritual kingdom. Satan is the ruler of the kingdom of the air, which shows you right away a difference in kingdoms, right? One's permanent and one's not. And but just because Satan has been limited or bound by the gospel for having ultimate power of spiritual death upon people, he still has strength and power. And God allows that to happen because, again, the whole point of being down here is to us to decide who we want to be with, God or not be with God forever and ever. And so God allows also some various calamities for Satan to do various things here on the earth because, as we read before, those things might bring about repentance. It doesn't bring about repentance to the majority, but it may bring about repentance to some people. And God's doing all he can to try to bring everyone to repentance. That's his desire. He doesn't want to see anyone to perish. But remember that a lot of the time we... It's okay. Are we on hold?
No, Siri just doesn't know what to do now.
Oh, okay. It's okay. Every now and then my house talks to me too. I'm sitting there and all of a sudden, sorry, I don't know that. I wasn't talking to you. Leave me alone.
They are listening.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. Maybe they'll learn something. Satan is trying to destroy people. God's trying to redeem people. And so we see Satan. I want to go back to chapter 12 just for a minute. I want you to see a picture of Satan, and I want you to see the connection to chapter 13. So we got to go back to the beginning of how Satan is described as this dragon. I wish I would remember to bring my paper Bible. Here we go. Let's see here. So in verse 1, let's start verse 1. It says, "And a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. That's God's people there. She's pregnant, and she's crying out in birth pains and in the agony of giving birth. So that's Jesus about to come to the earth. And another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great red dragon, which is identified here in a moment as Satan. And it's got 7 heads and 10 horns, okay, and on his head 7 diadems. So I want you to remember this dragon figure, and he has 7 heads and 10 horns. In this case, the crowns or diadems are on his heads. So that's how he's described there, or depicted there in the vision. And his tail sweeps in a third of the stars, and those are the angels that went with Satan when he sinned, and he took a third of the angels with him here. And so we covered some of this, and so then verse 7, Michael kicks him out, right? We talked about that. There's this war that happened in heaven, and he's thrown down to the earth, and that's what verse 12 says, woe to the earth and the sea, the devil has come down to you in great wrath. He's pursuing the male child, so, obviously the male child, Satan is pursuing him even when he's on the earth, and of course, just as God prophesied to Satan back in the garden, you will bruise his heel, but he's going to crush your head. And so that's happened in our time, and then we're seeing this replayed here. And we see that the woman, God's people, again, has to go in hiding because Satan, after he can't do anything against the Messiah, he turns his attention to God's people. And so he pursues God's people, and so it's so severe, even though God does things to kind of interfere with his persecution against God's people, they have to go in hiding for this period of time, time and a half of time, 1,260 days, 42 months. That's how it's described variously in different places. Now, let's look at chapter 13 and see how these 2 beasts. So, remember, Satan's cast to the earth. Woe to the earth and the sea. Devil's been cast down to you. Now in chapter 13, we see a vision where you have 2 beasts, one on the earth and one on the sea. So you have now how Satan is, greater detail of how he's going to persecute God's people, how exactly he's going to be doing that. And you have a beast coming out of the sea and a beast on the earth. We've talked a little bit about the beast on the sea as being the political persecution that Satan uses against God's people. And then we're going to find out how God uses religious persecution against God's people. That's the beast of the earth, which we'll get to later on. But I want you to see here the point of this. So look at 13, verse 1. So I saw the beast out of the sea. Now notice this beast is described a lot like the dragon. It's got 10 horns and 7 heads. In this case, the diadems are not on his heads, but his horns. That's the only real distinction there. And also the way the beast looks, whereas the dragon, I guess described as a dragon with 7 heads, here he is a beast that has that looks like a leopard, feet like a bear, and its mouth was like a lion's mouth. If you look at the picture at the top of the handout I gave you, you'll see an artist's rendering of that. There's handouts on that table there, Wendy. One artist rendering. It's not bad. I've seen other ones I didn't like as much. We don't really know what it looked like, okay, except the way John describes it. So he has things on there. It's got 7 heads, so you gotta render that some way. It looks a little bit dragon-like there, which I think is not a bad idea. I am really activating all the phones today. Okay. You see the crown and the horns, and you see the kind of leopard. You see the bare feet and the leopard-looking, and maybe the lion-looking mouth there, perhaps. And so it's not a bad rendering of it. But the whole point of it is to show the close relationship in its description to the dragon, to the devil. So the point of the vision is to do 2 things. The way it's described is to connect it to Satan. Okay, so you should see that. Oh, we just saw the devil was described as having 7 heads and 10 horns. So you would remember that, and the connection between this beast of the sea that I've already defined for you, but at least you would see that connection of it. And then the way it's described with this prophetic imagery from the book of Daniel. And so the idea of the leopard and bear and lion, which we read in Daniel 7. And we might look at a little bit of that again. And maybe I just didn't get it all done, but I was trying to do a chart where I can put side by side the descriptions in Revelation 13 and Daniel 7. It's pretty interesting to see those put side by side, see how close they are. But if you're familiar with these things, because you kind of know your Bible pretty well, you read this, not only are you seeing the connection within Revelation itself between the description of the beast of the sea and the dragon, but you're also seeing this imagery used from prophecy already. Those beasts, those four beasts of Daniel 7 were the empires of Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome. And those four main world empires, which are described several times in the book of Daniel, because Daniel's prophecies are leading up as a timeline to the arrival of the Messiah. Here, John's point is to give not necessarily a timeline as much as simply major events and, if you will, the ultimate warfare is going on during the church age. That's really his goal here, and to encourage the church to persevere, right? So we see some the resemblance of the beast of the sea to Satan, how Satan's described. And we see the fact that also these empires are mentioned because there's attention being drawn to an empire. That's the whole point. When you see prophecy images that are related to empires being used again, that's what it's referencing. And so in Bible comprehension, there are rules. Just like all comprehension, there are rules. That study is called hermeneutics, and it's just interpreting rules for comprehension, for the Bible especially. And there's one thing called the first mentioned principle. This is one of the probably easiest and greatest little hermeneutic rules for you to know. There are other ones, of course, that are just very general, like context. You got to know the background of, what's being written, who's writing it, who's he writing it to, what are the circumstances going on, what's the occasion for writing it. Those are just general interpretive rules as well. In other words, what something means is related to why, who, and to whom it was written. Pretty simple. Pretty much everything is like that. But in the Bible, when God mentions something, God's not he's very consistent, and change like shifting shadows, right? And so God is trying to communicate things, even if we don't necessarily agree with, how he's chosen to communicate those. Maybe you might wonder, why is God doing it the way he's doing it here? Well, God basically, we talked about that already, essentially. The same question was posed by the apostles to Jesus about parables. And he said, because essentially, to you has been given the kingdom, but to the skeptics and the scoffers, it hasn't been given. And so to those who want to mock me, I give them fodder for their mocking. And for those who are seeking truth, I give you the same thing, and you'll find truth in it. And so God has a reason for these things, and God wants to encourage the church. And he uses these symbols, I believe, because he's trying to show, number one, the cohesiveness of the Word of God and the fulfillment of prophecies and all these things that happen. So this principle simply is, when God first mentions something, it's pretty consistent from there on. So a lot of times it's good to go back to the first time something was used, because generally speaking, it'll be used in the same way, and you're trying to look at it afterward. So that's why when you see these prophetic imagery in Revelation, you go back to Daniel when it was used, and you understand how it was used there, and you apply it the same way here. That's the whole point of using these images, to tell you how to interpret this, okay? So, again, you have, because in Daniel there were four beasts, leopard, bear, lion, and dragon, or, well, couldn't actually say dragon, it just says a beast. So I won't put dragon on there. That was almost a mistake. Yep. Yeah, that wouldn't have been good at all. Okay, so so the leopard, a bear, a lion, and a beast. Here you have a beast that has these attributes in it. And so notice the attention here in the vision in Revelation 13 is on the beast. The reason why this beast has some of the attributes of the others is because you're supposed to recognize these are empires. And so the beast here represents an empire. And so when you have a beast of the sea, and we've already kind of looked at this, we talked about this in this particular case, it is a political empire. Now, what empire existed when Jesus was born? Roman Empire, right? And it's the same empire that was existing when the church began, and for many years afterwards, actually all the way up into like 497, AD 497, is a technical date for the end of the Roman Empire. But you have a beast here, and the only difference here between this and the dragon is the location of the crowns. The crowns were on the heads of the dragon, but they're on the horns of the beast of the sea. So I gave you on the handout some descriptions of things. And so the first few verses are discussed there. It says, I saw a beast rising out of the sea, 10 horns, 7 heads, 10 diadems on its horns, and a blasphemous name on its head. So the beast of the sea, the beasts or kingdoms, or probably better understood empire. Satan led political powers opposing God's kingdom. That's what the beast of the sea is. The 10 horns with diadems represent kingdoms within the empire. These are the 10 kingdoms under the Roman Empire. Now, this is the most common understanding of the 10 kingdoms of Rome. There are other historical names given here, rarely, like Isaac Newton had slightly different kingdoms. A lot of them are the same as a couple different ones they had. But generally speaking, these are the commonly 10 recognized kingdoms of the Roman Empire. Remember that what part of the statue back in Daniel chapter 2 represented the Roman Empire? Right, you got the head of gold, that was Babylon, right?
Right.
And then you had the torso or chest of silver, and what was that? Persia, right? Persia came after Babylon. So that's and you have both of those empires in Daniel, right? You have, starts off with the Babylonian Empire with Nebuchadnezzar and Belshazzar, and then you have Darius, right? Darius the Mede, who's a Persian, or Medo-Persian, and they have that empire, so there's actually a switch while Daniel's writing that book. And then you have, what comes after the Persian Empire? The Greek Empire, right? And then the Greek Empire is conquered by the Roman Empire, so that's the legs and the feet, right? And that's just some kind of freaky statue. How many toes do feet have?
10.
It was not a trick question. 10, yes. 10 toes. People have 10 toes, right? So see the consistency. Why is it interesting that God used a statue in the beginning that had a statue where its legs and feet represent the Roman Empire, and there's 10 toes on feet, and here we have the 10 kingdoms of the Roman Empire being represented by these horns. Horns are also used a lot in Daniel. For instance, you might remember, there was like a ram with, or a goat, with 4 horns. Might have been a ram. I can't remember now, actually. That's in Daniel 7, and that represented the 4 kingdoms of the Greek Empire, because it was divided up into 4 kingdoms. After Alexander the Great died, he conquered the world for the Greek Empire. When he died, it was divided up into tetrarchy, into his 4 generals, and we talked a lot about that. You remember all the generals, they were fighting each other, the Seleucid kings, and all of that stuff that happened in Daniel. That was all the Greek fighting back and forth that was going on. that was prophesied by Daniel in great detail. Then you have the 7 heads. So now I gave you a quote, because remember, from further on in Revelation, because remember, this repeats, right? So this is the same period of time, discussed 7 different times from 7 different vantage points and 7 different levels of detail. And so looking at a different cycle in Revelation 17, the 7 kings are mentioned there. They're actually called kings. So there are also 7 kings. 5 had fallen, 1 is, and the other has yet to come. But when he does come, he must remain for a little while. So here I give you the 7 kings of Rome. Most people know Gaius Julius Caesar. I don't know if you know or not, but the word Caesar actually is not some Latin word for king or emperor, even though it was used that way. It's actually Julius's family name. And they took his family name and turned it into a name for an emperor, okay? And so his descendants became Caesars because they were descendants of the Caesar, Julius Caesar, as we call him. He died in 44 BC. And his nephew, he died without any legitimate offspring. And so in his will, he posthumously adopted his nephew, Octavian. And Octavius, Gaius Octavius Thurius, he became Caesar Augustus. He's the one that is king or emperor when Jesus is born. Okay? And then, so he was the second Caesar, and then, Tiberius and Caligula and Claudius, those were the first 5. And then Nero is the 6th emperor. He is one that obviously put a lot of he was one of the ones that put probably the most intense persecution of the church at the time. You could make a good case to a later Roman emperor, also Domitian, put a lot of, maybe even more persecution on the church. But Domitian was not a Caesar. He was from a different dynasty, because after Nero's son is deposed and his head is removed, he was the last Caesar. There were 2 others that reigned shortly after him for a few months, but they were found out to be imposters and not legitimate heirs. They weren't actually Caesars. So there are 7 legitimate Caesars that ruled Rome. And so the 7 heads that are on this political, or this beast of the sea, representing the political persecution of the church that Satan is using, having the 7 heads, notice the way a different cycle describes it. Again, greater detail, right? So in chapter 17, it says 7 kings. 5 had fallen, so 5 are gone. 1 is, okay, and then the other is yet to come. And so that fits perfectly as exactly what happened. When John wrote this is one of the reasons why I believe it was written when I think it was written. A lot of people try to cite external evidence to say, well, we think it was written in the 90s. But the internal evidence, I would suggest to you, fits an earlier date, around 68 or before. So the fact that the timeline here makes it being written during the time of Nero, if that is the case, if this understanding is correct about these 7 kings, and they're on the 6th one, because 5 are gone, 1 is, and 1 is yet to come, it would have to be written before the year 68. But that's a common question, and probably one of the main differences I have with even people that I agree mostly on. It's not a huge deal because you still get the same basic premise, but some of the details will be slightly altered based on their dating of it. But mine's dated from the text. I mean, I'd like to think I'm just discerning when it was written based on what it says actually in the text. So it would have to be written during Nero's time, which is before the year 68. And then his son, Galba, he reigned for about 7 months. And then he had, again, 2 others come after him, but they were declared illegitimate and imposters. And that was the end of the Caesar line of Roman emperors. It was replaced by the Flavian dynasty after that. So all the other emperors were not Caesars. So that's what I suggest to you with the 10 horns and the 7 heads. Is any questions about that as far as what I'm trying to say?
Are you going to talk more about the church in the wilderness and hiding later? Or?
Yeah, because that comes up several times.
I thought.
Yeah. Okay, verse 2. And the beast that I saw was like a leopard, so here's these images. Feet were like a bear's, and its mouth was like a lion's, and the dragon gave its power and his throne and great authority. So again, the dragon, Satan, is giving his power to this beast. The beast resembles world empires. Again, imagery from Daniel 7. In Daniel 7, I listed the things I've already kind of told you there. The leopard is Babylon, the bear is Persia, lion is Greeks, and the beast was Rome. And then I give you some dates for them. The leopard, in this case, had 4 generals under it. That's some stuff from Daniel 7, so I'm not going to go into that in greater detail right now, but we've talked a little bit. Actually, it should say, I got that messed up. It should say the lion there. I got the lion and the leopard wrong on there. I got it right on the top where it says Daniel 7, but I flip-flopped it on the bottom. So I'll have to change that. Anyway, the 4 generals, that's the Greek Empire, and the 4 generals that Alexander, basically his empire was divided up between his 4 generals, and why there was 4 horns on that piece. Okay, so let's look back at the text here in Revelation 13. And so Satan's given a lot of authority to this empire here, Roman Empire. One of its heads seemed, as verse 3, to have a mortal wound, but its mortal wound was healed. And the whole earth marveled as they followed the beast. And they worshipped the dragon, for he had given his authority to the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, "Who is like the beast, and who can fight it?" Now, Caesar worship is not unusual. A lot of kingdoms and kings demanded worship. You might remember, both the Persian king Darius was talked into a time of worship, and in the book of Daniel, and Babylonian kings were often worshipped. They demanded worship. Remember, Daniel got arrested because he was praying to something else at the time, to the one true God. And he was supposed to only pray to King Darius, and even though Darius liked him, he had to throw him in the lion's den because it was the rule, the law he had passed. You see the fact that this beast seems to have a mortal wound. In other words, it looks like it's dead, but it's healed. And everyone's worshiping this beast, this empire, and everyone's, no one can stand against this empire. So the Roman Empire, of course, was extremely dominant. And even though it kind of did fizzle out in the year 497, and in fact, historically, they look at that as, that's really when the Roman Empire ended. But the truth is, that does not correlate with what Satan was doing and what God tells us Satan was doing. Because out of the political Roman Empire, now the political Roman Empire could be described like this. It could be described as pagan, political, I had another word, I can't remember what I wrote down now. Hold on a second. Let's see here. It'll come to me in a minute. I can't remember what I wrote down. There was ways I was thinking about describing it, so it kind of made sense, but that's okay. It'll come to me. So it was the political part of it, and then this political part was mostly pagan. Most of the power was focused on the political and its worldly conquerors, and it looked like it finally had been destroyed. But so in other words, that's the mortal wound in the head. But what and did you notice it wasn't how it's described there? It says one of its heads seemed to have a mortal wound. It doesn't say which head. Okay, this is one of its heads. But its mortal wound was healed, and the whole earth marveled as they followed the beast. I would kind of suggest to you the reason why it doesn't say which had the seventh head or anything. It's probably none of the ones that's trying to line up with. The whole point is eventually political Rome comes to an end, but it really doesn't. It looks like it does. Everyone thought it was dead. It had a mortal wound, but it didn't die. So that's when it begins to turn to what we're going to look at here in a minute, which is the beast of the earth. But let's move on here. So look at, oh, here it is, let's see. Oh, well, yeah, it's already up here. So we're just going to call this the Roman Empire. I do that for a reason, just you have to stay with me a minute to figure out. Those are the three ways I would like you to think about this beast of the sea, because it makes a clear, I think, understanding of what the beast of the earth is about.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
The Roman Empire went from being a political to a religious.
Yep.
So is that basically what still, they thought it was dead, but it's still going on?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, and that's exactly what the beast of the earth is going to be.
okay.
So yeah, that's it. You're already there. So what we're going to find out, it goes from political empire to a political Rome to papal Rome, and from the Roman Empire to the Holy Roman Empire, which is what it was called, and from pagan to well, I guess pagan to papal, but what was the other? Can't remember my own descriptions now. But yes, that's exactly.
Okay.
That's exactly where what I think is saying here.
So as a
Religious.
political
Okay.
power, it was dead, but it actually took over in another area.
Yes. Now, see, now think about that. It's a good point, because you know, all the historians look at it. Well, you know, the Caesars are gone, Flavian dynasty's over, political Rome's no longer a thing, and so they're pretty much done with it. Historians are done with it, except for the fact, when you do read history, you see no matter what empire you're talking about, what kingdom you're talking about, all roads lead to Rome.
Mm-hmm.
All roads lead to Vatican City,
That's right.
because no one could do anything without the Pope saying it was okay. That's why it was such a big deal when brain not working. England, when the King of England, Henry VIII, there we go.
Okay.
I was thinking of the word Earl, but I know that wasn't right. Henry VIII, when he went against the Pope, that was a big deal. Because you're not just going against the Pope, you're going against everybody. Because everybody's linked to the Pope.
Sure.
You're either an ally of the Pope, or he's going to destroy you, essentially. Because he has everybody else. He controls everybody else. And so he would, I mean, because they look, here's the sad part of it, and the reason why it worked. You know, Satan had so blinded people to the effect that the Pope would have power over you. If he decided you're condemned, you're condemned. And so everyone was afraid of him. And instead of saying, well, you don't have any power, God has the power. And the Word is how He rules. See the difference? When you get rid of the preachers, the ones preaching the gospel, the Word, then you got a guy say, well, don't worry, I'll just tell you what to do. Just do what I say, you'll be fine. If he's got all the authority now, what are you going to do when he says, well, I'm cutting you off. You're done. I'm cursing you. You're condemned. Well, everyone in your country's going to freak out. They're going to turn on you. Because they had turned Christianity into superstition.
Right.
And it resembled a lot of the paganism that they came from.
Right.
So really political Rome and its paganism just pervaded in the religious aspect of it. So the truth is, Satan was much more effective and powerful, universally speaking, under the beast of the earth, because the beast of the sea, while the church was within, you know, a small, relatively small area, and even though it was trying to go into all the world and preach the gospel, and it had essentially gone to the known world at that time, during the first century or so, the fact that now that the earth, that people are spreading out on the earth, and there's more kingdoms that are that are springing up everywhere. How is Satan going to continue with just one empire to keep the church at bay? Well, you got to spread it all over. You got to find a way to control everybody, and they did that through the Holy Roman Empire, which became what the world fails to realize, something that Satan understood well, and that you can do a lot more control by threatening people's souls than you can over their bodies. Of course, Jesus said that too, right?
Yeah.
Don't worry about one who can kill a body, but one who can condemn your soul and eternity in hell. And so there's a reason that we should have that concept in our head, but the question is, who holds the power of condemning your soul? It's not a person, it's God. Of course, sin's what condemns us anyway, but like Jesus is the one that saves our soul, not a person. Doesn't have that ability to do that. So anyway, just think about Satan's strategy here. I mean, it's so obvious. It's hard to believe that we probably would miss it if God wouldn't tell us about it and let us see. Of course, we're looking back in hindsight. God is also warning them about what's going to happen. But now we're looking on this side of the wilderness time. The church has already gone to the wilderness and come out of the wilderness for those times, and so we're looking back in hindsight. Let's see. I had some things on there, but I'm not going to read Daniel 7, I don't think. Alrighty. Verse 4. I read that. Well, okay, I'm just going to read verse 4. And they worshiped the dragon, Satan, for he had given its authority to the beast, right, the political empire, and they worshiped the beast, saying, who is like the beast, and who can fight against it? And the beast was given a mouth. So Satan gives this beast a mouth, uttering haughty and blasphemous words, and it was allowed to exercise authority for 42 months. Now you know why the church went into hiding, because of this persecution of, in this case, starting off with political persecution, but even more than that. So, sorry, let me go back to my text here. All right, verse 6. It opened its mouth to utter blasphemies against God, blaspheming his name and his dwelling, that is, those who dwell in heaven. Also, it was allowed to make war on the saints and to conquer them, and authority was given it over every tribe and people and language and nation, and all who dwell on the earth will worship it, and everyone whose name has not been written before the foundation of the world in the book of life of the Lamb that was slain. If anyone has an ear, let him hear. If anyone is taken captive, to captivity he goes. If anyone is to be slain with the sword must he be slain. God is not going to keep persecution from happening. That's basically what it's saying. In other words, don't be shocked or think that God's plan has failed when you see persecution happening. God is purposely not keeping people from it. And he tells us, obviously, some of the reasons, but the rest of the reasons are known to God. They're above our pay grade. And I always say there's no way for us to know. We might say, boy, in China, what if you could be a Christian and not suffer persecution? Think about how many more people would come to Christ. We might think that, but the truth is we don't know that. God does, because God knows everything like that. God knows what is, actually, more people might be more willing to follow Christ and be a true disciple of Christ in face of persecution. I had one of my students ask me, I was grading papers the other day, and one of the questions he was asking was, do you think that persecution is necessary? We were reading some things about the persecuted church around the world and different accounts and stories of it, and one of his questions to me was, do you think it's a necessary thing? Because he obviously saw how committed people were in the face of persecution. Because if you're going to claim the name of Christ, you're going to be serious about it. You're not going to just put a fish emblem on the back of your car, and that's the depth of your Christianity, because you're going to get killed. And so if you have to commit and put your life on the line, you're going to be serious about it. And so he said, do you think persecution has to come to make committed followers of Christ? And I said, well, I don't think it's required for someone to be committed. I mean, I know Christians that haven't been, I would put myself in that category, have not been intensely persecuted for believing in Christ. However, as far as how many people would actually be committed, I can't say whether more or less would be. All I know is whatever God does is always the right move. So I'm certainly not in a position to question what he's doing. Even when I don't understand what he's doing, I just say, well, that's my problem. That's not his problem, it's my problem. If I can't follow what God's doing, because he's God and I'm not. And so I accept that. There's things I don't understand, I can't understand. And I'm fine to trust God with those things because I already trust him with my very eternity. I mean, what more is there to trust than that? So God, for his own purposes, is allowing persecution to come, so don't be shocked about it or surprised by it. God's plan is still working the way it's supposed to. And so that's why the very last part says, the very last phrase of that verse, 10, here is a call for the endurance and faith of the saints. Yes?
I want to read this to you. This is a song
Okay.
by Steve Camp about living
Oh, really?
dangerously. It says, there's safety in complacency, but God is calling us out of our comfort zone into a life of complete surrender to the cross. To live dangerously is not to live recklessly, but righteously. It is because of God's radical grace for us that we can risk living a life of radical obedience to him.
Mm.
And basically, this is what it says. This calls for endurance and faithfulness from the saints.
Yeah.
I mean, what you were just saying, the persecution. I mean, this is a decision to die.
Right. It's true. It's true. Do you have a question?
Talking about persecution, we've got Christians and Muslims being killed tonight
Yeah.
in Syria right now. They're in this thing that you're talking about. They're running for their lives.
Right. It's
So
true.
We just are very blessed. to live
Yeah.
in a country.
That is
For
true.
How long, I don't know.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for how long?
Agreed. Agreed. Yep. There are people dying regularly for Christ. Sometimes it's hard for us to imagine that or imagine people would do that, but they do. I think I remember I told you recently about that graduating
Yes.
class in Indonesia where the church, two of the people getting ready to graduate, well, two people from the class that was getting ready to graduate had already been killed for being Christians and spreading the gospel. So yeah, it's a serious thing. And God warns us about it, so don't lose heart. Because remember, I know we always think about death as punishment. Death is not punishment. Okay. For the Christian, death means to be with the Lord. So don't think about it always. I mean, suffering is not a great thing, sure. But Jesus suffering for my sin wasn't a great thing either, in the sense of the fact that he had to do it. I'm glad he did it. It's a great thing that way. Great thing for me, anyway. Okay, so you see that picture of that beast. But notice then here, you kind of get this little sequential word here in verse 11 where it says, then. In other words, you saw this beast, now this is not like, Godzilla where, one beast and they're all going to, This is a vision of a beast and then that was that, and now you have another beast. And this beast comes out of the earth. And it had two horns like a lamb and it spoke like a dragon. Now, that artist rendering here, I don't necessarily like that.
That's what I thought I saw.
Okay.
It's crazy.
That, I don't know if it's the best one for a couple of reasons. Number one, it says horns like a lamb, which probably means they weren't curled like that. Because
That looks like more of a
usually when they get older is when they curl back like that. Lamb horns are kind of straight. I don't know that's a big deal. Just an observation. And I tend to think the reason why the whole lamb thing is being invoked is for a good reason. And it has breath like a dragon, but I don't know if it looks so scary like that. It might look just like a lamb. It doesn't really say what it looked like. It just said it had horns like a lamb and it spoke like a dragon. Because the second beast here, so this is the beast of the sea, now you got the second beast, the beast of the earth, and this one is going to be religious Rome. And it's going to be called the Holy Roman Empire. and it's going to be papal. The word papal just means Papa, Father. That's why they call him Holy Father, because that's what he claims to be. So now that to expand his influence and make it really more powerful, now when you hold, Karl Marx, the philosopher, basically from which communists draw their thinking, said that religion is the opiate of the masses. And what he meant by that was it's a way to control people. He was, he's an atheist, right? But he wasn't, he says religion actually has some benefit to it. And it was, and he didn't mean for your soul. He meant because we can control people with religion. And the reason why I called it an opiate, he talks a little bit about explaining this, the idea that just like opium can do for the one who's hurt or sick, can make them forget about that or act like they're not hurt or they're not sick because it takes away that pain or whatever. And so in other words, religion is very powerful. And the reason why people get addicted to pain medicines is because they like what pain medicines initially do, if they started with it initially for the right reason, right? They like what pain medicines do. They take away pain. That's what we want. But then there's a lasting effect where it gets its hooks in you, right? Of course. But that's the power of religion in Karl Marx's eyes. You can control people by controlling. He would think of it as superstition. Okay, so you can control the dialogue of what they believe and what they think is really important. You can control them, and that's right out of Satan's playbook. That's exactly what he's doing. When the church was smaller, he can control it politically, but when the church got larger, he had to resort to other things. And so, if I can convince you, do you ever wonder, seriously, why did they kill Jesus? What threat did Jesus pose? In the sense of his kingdom wasn't of this world, so he wasn't really trying to take political power, right? He wasn't robbing anybody. He wasn't murdering anybody. Wasn't stealing from, It's what's the animosity all about, right? He healed people. He loved people. He taught people. Well, it's all about power, isn't it? Because they realized that if he's going to be in charge, I can't be in charge. And if I can convince the people, well, he can't be the Messiah because I already told you who the Messiah is, and he doesn't match what I told you he is. So those leaders were able to convince the people. Seriously, how did the people benefit by screaming out, crucifying Jesus? You can understand why the Sadducees and the Pharisees and the high priests would benefit, right? Because they're all in charge. But what about the average Jew? Why are they screaming for Jesus to be killed, a guy who never harmed anybody in his life? Because they were manipulated into it, that's how. Yeah, they said, this person's against God. And so they rallied all the people against Jesus because they had their own motives, of course. And it's exactly what Satan does religiously. In other words, if they can say, well, no, here's the truth. Well, here's a guy that says, no, this is the truth. This is why, remember what they did to Wycliffe, and because it was forbidden to write the scriptures in anything but Latin, because the people didn't know Latin, the only people who knew Latin was the leaders, and they say it was against the law, and so John Wycliffe translated the Bible into English, and so they killed him, buried him, dug up his bones again, burned his bones.
I thought that was Tyndale.
It was Tyndale, I'm sorry. Yeah,
That's okay.
No, that's what I was thinking of, right. So why would they be so angry, Because they're threatening. Why don't they want people to know the truth?
They lose control.
Because what do they always say, what's the antidote to all the wrong thing? Sunlight is the best antiseptic, right?
Mm-hmm.
The light of the gospel is the best antiseptic to any evil, so you gotta keep it away. So you gotta kill off the preachers, you gotta persecute the church, and then you gotta say, no, we're the real church, Just do what we say. And that's why, it's pretty interesting. Of course, what eventually led to the end of the power of the Roman Empire, the Holy Roman Empire, was the gospel. When the Bible was able to be printed and distributed, and people began reading it and saying, wait a minute, we don't do this stuff. This is what the Bible says. You told us the Bible said this, or God said that, but it says this. And then people began to, break away, and so began losing its power. Of course, the Holy Roman Empire still has power today, not near what it had during the Dark Ages for those 1,260 years. It had almost absolute looking power on the earth because they were the only thing in town. Almost all the Christians had to go underground because, they were. If you think the persecution that happened in China is bad, at least China cares a little bit about what other people think because they want to make money off of you, so they can only go so far in their things. But we all know what they did there in Tiananmen Square years ago when they ran that guy over with a tank. They'd love to be doing it all day long if they could. If we'd let them. They'd be driving tanks right through Hong Kong right now if they thought they could get away with it, wouldn't they? But the only reason why they don't do it is because we live in a time now where a lot of eyes are watching. And now there's people with lies don't have unchallenged power anymore. But there was a time.
Controls the earth.
Huh?
Wealth controls the earth.
Yeah. That's how it.
It's not anything that you want in a club, it's
Mhm.
wealth. It goes
Yeah.
right back down to the dollar.
Wealth and power and all that goes with it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And controlling it.
So Satan uses all those things.
The church is under attack today with church against church polity.
Yeah,
It's
true.
the same.
Same thing. So it's always. That's why I always say, why would we fight over power in the church? There isn't none to be had. It's all Jesus has all the authority. There's nothing to fight over.
Neuter the church.
Yeah, it's true. Certainly can. All right. So what we'll do next week, we will pick up with the beast of the earth. There's not a lot to talk about there. I've already kind of foretold a lot of it to you, but we'll talk about the one of the most famous things in the Book of Revelation is that silly 666. I only call it silly because of people's hysteria over it, not because it's actually silly. But we'll look at that next week. All right, let's pray. Father, I thank you for your word, and I just thank you, God, that your word is that beacon of hope for us. It is that which keeps us from being misled and being victims of lies and deceit and wickedness, Lord. And I pray, God, that we would put ourselves to understanding the things that you tell us. Not just Revelation, but just the word in general. How important it is to us, God, that we would know the truth and not be so easily deceived. So many people we know, people we're related to, even deceived. Because, God, they believe a lie rather than the truth. And we want to bring the truth to them. But, God, we have to be strong and on good, solid ground before we can be effective in doing that. So, Lord, help us to continue to grow and continue to let our light shine with everyone we come in contact with, God. Thank you for being with us tonight. We pray in Jesus' name.